What happens to your accounts receivable in a business sale? Well, it's really whatever you negotiate, but we're going to try to give you some guidelines to give you what the base case might be in your business sale. So now for most of you, when you go to sell your business, you're going to sell through what's called an asset sale. Typically, this is going to be in the $10 million and below sale price area. Now, in these typical sales, the accounts receivable are going to stay with you, the seller, by default. And this is because, well, you did the work to generate those accounts receivable. You spent the money on the labor, you took the risk. That's your money, you've earned it. But there are some situations where the buyer might ask for some accounts receivable to stay with the business. That would be if you have a business that has really large accounts receivable and needs a lot of working capital. Because typically when a buyer comes in, let's say you have a business that has a 90-day collection cycle. So you perform the job and you get paid 90 days later. So that means the new owner is gonna have to spend the money day one to start servicing customers, and they're not going to receive cash in 90 days. So they need to cover that 90-day period. So they need enough cash or accounts receivable to cover, say, 90 days of expenses. So they might go 90 days before they start collecting their first dollar. So in that instance, you're going to likely see that they're going to ask for some accounts receivable to stay in the business because really they need it. Through the SBA loan program, they can typically borrow up to about $500,000 in working capital. But if a business has a long cycle like that, say that 90-day extreme, then the business is going to need a lot more working capital potentially than that $500,000. So a way that a buyer is going to fill that gap is by asking you to include accounts receivable in the sale. And it's really a good idea for you to do that because it's going to allow you to sell to a wider audience. If you don't, you're going to have buyers that are going to bring bigger pools of cash to the table, which means it's a smaller buyer pool. So if you want to sell for the highest price, you have a long cash conversion cycle, you might want to include some accounts receivable in the sale. But you should also expect to be compensated for that. So if a buyer is asking you to leave some accounts receivable in the business, you should also expect an increase in the value that you receive for the sale. So you should expect a higher sale price. Now, in the other common type of sale, stock sale, and typically in larger sales, the accounts receivable is viewed as an asset of the company. You're buying the stock of the company. So the accounts receivable stays with the company. So that's really when you get into larger deal sizes that you'll see that the default would be for the accounts receivable to stay with the company. But then of course it should be in the valuation. So you should be compensated for that because you did perform the work and you took the risk to generate that cash flow. But for most people watching, in most circumstances, accounts receivable stay with you. But if you need help getting your business ready for sale, you're ready to sell your business today, reach out, we can help. We operate nationally.